I'm the Director of Sales here with ThrottleNet. With me today, I have George Rosenthal. That's the GR that you guys might see on your screen, or George Rosenthal may be listed. George is the president of our company. He's the one that ultimately is administering our webinar today. In addition, I have our sales and marketing assistant online, AJ Rogers. She's going to be monitoring our chat board as well as our question board for any chat or questions that might come in via chat or otherwise. And we will answer those questions to the best of our ability after we get through the content today. We want to make sure we stay on pace. However, we recognize there may be some questions at the end, and we will circle back to those questions once we are finished with just our primary demonstration of OneDrive and how it works. And then finally, and really most importantly, I have on the call with me today Chris Glockner. Here it is taking a break from his job as an airline pilot. He's coming in now to do a demonstration of OneDrive. He forgot to take his headset off, as most of you can probably tell. So he's going to get back in TN Chopper 1 as soon as he is finished, and he's going to take off and probably do a little bit of traffic reporting later on. So that is my team for the day. Before we get started, and just so folks are aware why we're doing this, over the years, I've been with the organization now for about 9 years. And with being with ThrottleNet for that long, I've talked to countless prospects and clients and just people in general about a variety of different things. And one of the things that comes up time and time again is Office 365, and more specifically, the aspects of 365. So it occurred to us as we go out and we talk to different folks, some of the folks that are on the line today specifically, around different ways of doing things, ways you might be able to get away from having a traditional file server on site, or ways you can deal with the situation that we find ourselves in right now with a lot of the stay-at-home orders. OneDrive and Office 365 as an entire solution is really helping people to work through these things, as well as helping them to get out of the hardware business and keeping them focused really on just application type servers and otherwise. So that is one of the primary reasons that we're doing this, is because these questions come up all the time. Now, in addition to that, this is the first in a multi-part series. So OneDrive isn't the only thing we're going to be talking about. It's just the only thing we're going to be talking about today. However, going forward, we're going to be talking about the chat function of Office 365, OneNote, how to use the apps, just a number of different items over the coming weeks. So every Thursday, we're going to be doing a webinar similar to this, unless otherwise stated, and invites will go out to everyone. And then finally, we recognize that a lot of folks, when we go through this, are not necessarily going to be able to jot down notes in a timely enough manner to be able to digest all the information. As such, this webinar will be available to you in the coming days at throttlenet.com/webinars. Again, that's throttlenet.com/webinars. I will give that address again at the end of our presentation today. But again, I understand we're going to cover a lot of ground today, and that you may need to revisit this. And by all means, we encourage you to check it out on our website and pick up anything that you may have lost along the way. So again, coming full circle today, what we're reviewing is OneDrive. I mean, it's probably one of the most least understood but most robust aspects of Office 365. So, what is OneDrive? Well, OneDrive obviously is one of the primary components of Office 365. So a better question probably is, what exactly is Office 365? So as defined by Microsoft, pretty straightforward, a lot of marketing fluff here, of course. Office 365 is an integrated experience of apps and services designed to help you pursue your passion and grow your business. There's that buzzword, passion. So that's great. Everybody understands that, but what is it really? Well, Office 365, depending on whom I've spoken with over the years, is a multitude of things. Some organizations, it's just their Outlook and email. That's all that they use it for, and that's all that they really feel that it does. For others that I've talked to, it's just their Office suite of products. And then for others, it's everything. It is their day in, day out. I mean, speaking for us as an organization, since a lot of the stay-at-home orders have taken effect, we have found Office 365 to be a major component of a good, solid business continuity and disaster recovery plan. So the goal of ours at the end of this entire series is to not only share with you why you should be using Office 365, but more specifically what the benefits are and giving you some insight as to exactly how the solution works. Of course, today starting with OneDrive. So for the core components of what Office 365 typically includes, as you can see it on my screen here, it's going to be Outlook, it's Office, which of course is the Office suite of products. We have email, we have Teams, we have OneDrive, we have SharePoint, the chat component to it, all that stuff, and it all integrates and ties together in a very fluid way. So in getting started and talking more specifically about what OneDrive is, now that we've established what Office 365 is, so OneDrive is a business solution for Microsoft, of course. It is a location for secure file storage, and it allows you to sync and share your files in a secure hosting environment. As part of your organization's Office 365 subscription, you can save files in OneDrive for business and then work with them from any device, from anywhere. And all your files can be either kept private, they can be housed in shared files, they can be shared out, they can have policies, permissions associated with them. And we're going to talk through all of that today. And then finally, you can access it through the OneDrive app that's available for all the major manufacturers and devices, iOS, Windows Phone, of course, and Android. And you can also access it through your browser. So you can pretty much get to it from anywhere, anytime, with or without an internet connection. So that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today, is how we do all of this. So in getting started, I wanted to give a brief overview as to what most of the primary benefits are of OneDrive before we actually get into our demonstration today with Chris. So one is really just availability. Now, I recognize that as I went out and did my research and created our slide deck today, that the information you see on screen goes through 2017. What you can assume is that the uptime for OneDrive has just continued to stay at about 99.9% or 99.98% since its inception. All right, that said, what that really equates to is about maybe 6 minutes or less of unscheduled downtime in a given month. So it's not significant, and typically that downtime is probably occurring during off hours, or it's such a blip you may not even notice that it's happening. You may just notice that a file might be taking a little bit longer to sync. But again, it is a highly available solution to you guys, and that's one of the things that makes it so appealing. In addition, accessibility is a big part of this. So as long as you have an internet connection, and even when you don't, OneDrive is available on your local desktop. Okay, so you couple this with the fact that it's device agnostic, so there's no device this solution will not work on. And you can work, again, as I stated earlier, either within your browser or within the OneDrive app itself. OneDrive is also a fully compliant solution. So it allows administrators to set different policies and permissions and levels for file sharing. We're going to talk about some of this. We're going to talk about being able to put link expirations out there, and how somebody can edit a document, not edit it, and so on. Again, it allows folks to do all that, and it does meet all the compliance and regulatory guidelines set forth by HIPAA as well as the SEC, meaning that no matter what sort of industry that you happen to be in and whatever your level of compliance happens to be, OneDrive is going to have you covered. So again, from a security perspective, very slick application in that way. Your ability to work offline. This seems to be a major sticking point for a lot of folks that, well, Chris, it's only available to me when I'm connected to the internet, right? Well, not exactly. It's really available to you whenever you want it to be. It's all dependent upon how you set it up. So while this may be true for file syncing and sharing, users are able to download any content such as working documents, and they can save that to the local desktop for editing and saving purposes. And then once they're connected again, say for example, they're on a flight or something along those lines, traveling across country, doing some work on a plane, they can go ahead when they get back online, when they get off the flight, they can automatically sync back up with OneDrive's hosting environment. And that's going to basically sync everything back up as if it never was offline in the first place. So while this isn't unique to OneDrive, the main reason that OneDrive is so key to this is that it offers full Microsoft Office integration. So a lot of the things that, say, Dropbox can do and some of those other solutions that are out there, one thing they are not capable of is being fully integrated with the full Microsoft Office suite of products. And what this means is that you do not have to transition and navigate away from the digital asset that you're working with at the time. So if you're in a Word document within OneDrive and you need to share it out or what have you, you're not having to go into a different application to pull it over and then move it back and hit send and all that good stuff and sync it up. Essentially, it's all happening within a collaborative ecosystem. And as a result, it allows users to work simultaneously on a document. It allows for insights, comments, suggestions, and full-blown collaboration. And then added to that, users can actually see a bit of an audit trail to see what activity has occurred on the document itself. That if there are any major changes or otherwise, you can go back to that individual and find out why those changes took place. And then lastly, on-demand file syncing. So this is really a great component when you've got users that have multiple devices, and this allows them on each device to be able to pick and choose what files they want to be able to sync with. So for example, if you're at work all day and you've got your Surface tablet as I have, or you've got your desktop or your laptop, you may want to sync all the files. However, at night, if you're sitting on your iPad and conducting business there, well, you may only want to sync certain files there because you don't want to consume too much space. Or if you have a laptop at home that you're working from, and again, you don't want to consume too much space. So this feature allows you to say very specifically what files you want on what device, so that you can access that quickly and easily, again, without consuming a lot of storage or anything else on the device itself. So now that we've covered a lot of the benefits associated with OneDrive, let's cover how exactly this all works. And we're going to start with how to access your files in general, which should be pretty straightforward. Now, before we get started, I'm going to transition over to Chris here for a moment. So Chris, if you wouldn't mind grabbing my screen. Okay, good deal. There we go. So the reason I wanted Chris to pull up his screen is because what we're going to talk about is how you use OneDrive based on general best practices. Okay. However, what I wanted folks to understand, especially a few that I know are on the line today, is that OneDrive can have your personal OneDrive account, which is what Chris happens to have on screen right now. You'll see there where it's got the gray bar going across. That's his personal OneDrive account within ThrottleNet. He could also hypothetically have his personal OneDrive account associated with this, so he could access it while at ThrottleNet. But down below there, and if you wouldn't mind highlighting it for me, Chris, the ThrottleNet Inc. site. Okay, so for those individuals that are looking to get away from a traditional file server, this is ultimately what we create on the back end. Now, we have to build this in the Azure hosting environment to a degree because OneDrive works in that hosting environment. However, what this does is that this is what allows you to be able to set up different file and folder structures depending on department or who should have access to what information. So what I'm getting at here is that in a traditional file server setting, you'd go in and you would designate, okay, this person has access to these files and folders, whereas this department has access only to these files and folders. Well, the way that we set this up is very similar to that. Users that don't have access to, say, the management folder would never see this showing up in there. However, users that, say, are in my position or Chris's position that have access to all of those files and folders, we may have a much longer list of folders under our company OneDrive account. And each one of these folders can then be set up with certain policies and permissions on who can access those folders and what they can do when they do so. However, coming full circle on that statement, again, we are going to focus on how you can move and share and do all those different functions within OneDrive, because that applies whether you're in your private OneDrive account or if you are in the actual team OneDrive account. They work the same way. But again, before we got into that, I wanted to at least have everybody understand that you're going to see something that looks similar to what Chris has on his screen right now, as opposed to just this OneDrive ThrottleNet Inc. Listing that he's got highlighted right now. So Chris, without further ado, since I've prefaced that, if you want to get into things by showing folks how you can access OneDrive, where it is in File Explorer, as well as how you might be able to view it online. So without further ado, by all means.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris, and good afternoon, everybody. So one thing I love about OneDrive is it's easy, and it's also included in Windows 10. So the service, subscription, and stuff like that on the back end might change depending on licensing, but it is included with Windows 10 as far as an application, so it's already playing well with Windows. So to access OneDrive, two easiest ways right off the bat. First one is your File Explorer on the taskbar. Everyone should have this. You pop it up, it's always going to be on the left-hand side there. Now, if for some reason you don't have that taskbar icon there, you will have a OneDrive icon in your notification area. That's the bottom right by the clock. You can simply right click on this, open folder, and it opens up OneDrive. So accessing it on the computer through the app, real simple, real smooth. Um, no issue there. Now, that same icon that you had down there, the notification area, right click, view online. That'll actually take us to what you were seeing on the right hand side of the screen before. This gets us to the OneDrive on the web. So very easy. And that's my favorite part of OneDrive is the configuration's easy, the sharing's easy. We'll go into a little bit of that later, but as far as accessing it, great, fantastic.
Yeah. So thank you for that, Chris.
Yep.
I'm going to steal the screen back here for a minute. Moving on to the next piece. Okay. Alrighty. So now that we know how to access our files in the online environment, and say, for example, when you happen to be just working on a file explorer, we're going to talk a little bit about how do you sync up your files for offline access. So first, you need to remember that files that you save to OneDrive are available online always at OneDrive.com and offline on your PC. I mean, that means that you can open and change them at any time, even if you're not connected to the internet. Now, when you do reconnect, OneDrive updates the online version, as I'd stated earlier, with any changes that you may have made while you were offline. Offline files, of course, come in very handy when you're without an internet connection, but they can also, as we discussed earlier, take up space on your PC. So if you turn on files on demand, you can choose which files are always available locally on your device and which files are only available when you're online. So how exactly do you access or sync your files for offline access? Well, first, and Chris is going to show a demonstration of this as well, but just a couple of high-level bullet points around this. You simply select the white or blue OneDrive cloud icon in the Windows taskbar notification area. So that's what Chris was clicking on earlier. And from there, we're going to select more, which is going to bring us to settings. Once we get there, we're going to select the account tab and select choose folders. And then finally, in the sync your OneDrive files to this PC dialog box, you'll uncheck any folders you don't want to sync on your computer and select OK. So Chris, if we could get a brief demonstration of that, I'll allow you to take over my screen again here, kind of walk folks through that.
Absolutely. So as he was saying, to start off picking what you're going to sync, we're going to go back down to that folder or that icon in the notification area. We will right click and go to the settings. What's important here is you do have a few tabs, but the one we're talking about is account, and by default, that should be the one that pops up for you. So you'll notice here, I've got two locations that are syncing. It's what Chris was talking about earlier. The first one is my private OneDrive, and then the second one is the team site. And you have ability to change what you can pull down from either of these two. So we'll go ahead and look at the first one, the private, and you'll see that I have everything set for on demand right now that I can pull down. And it's because I'm not saving much on the private OneDrive right now on this computer, so I can do that. But if you were to get some large files, gigabyte, we're getting into 30, 40 gigabyte folders, you'd probably want to drill into it by clicking on the arrow, uncheck specific ones that you don't need on demand, and then of course you'd hit OK to adjust the permissions as far as what's being pulled down to that computer. Again, makes it very easy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and Chris, I'm going to take back over again Drive here. Okay. All right. So then moving on to sync status, and we're going to show some examples of what this looks like, but it's pretty self-explanatory, as I think most can see on screen here. If you've got a green check mark, your files are in sync and everything is complete. If it's a spinning wheel, this is not the spinning wheel of death. This is a good spinning wheel. So this is just letting you know that the file or folder is still syncing. And then on occasion, due to say no internet connection at the time or otherwise, and you try to force a sync, it may tell you that that file or folder cannot be synced at that time, and that's when you're going to get the red X. So Chris, again, if we want to just walk through briefly to make sure that everybody understands the differences and what they should expect to see when they actually do sync up a file or a folder. So if you wouldn't mind taking over again.
Absolutely. So on the status column here, we see that the blue is the on-demand. That's the things that I can choose to pull down to the computer. We see them without actually storing them on the computer. That's a nice thing too. You'll see a lot of files that aren't actually local, and you can choose to pull them down locally. So the one I have opened so far is the blue Word document, that test document. So you see the little green thing, it means it has synced. Now I'm going to show you just, this is a rather large file, like 40 megs or something. It's a video file I put together. And we'll see that as soon as I do that, we go into the little rotating arrows. That tells me it's currently syncing. And once this goes green, which normally just takes a few seconds, we'll have complete access to it, regardless of where I'm accessing it from, whether it be an app on one of the computers, the smartphone app, or the web access. And just like that, we're fully synced.
Mm-hmm. And again, that was a rather large file size too.
And that was a rather large file size, 45 meg file. So
for what it's worth, on a single page document, like most folks are going to be working in, whether it's Excel, PowerPoint, or otherwise, obviously those are much smaller file sizes. And as a result, the sync is going to happen almost instantaneous in most cases. Or at least you would think it would.
might not have liked being the same name as the last one because it's
Probably not.
permissions and such right now. But yes, I've tested it many times. It's pretty quick.
Yeah, I figured it was.
Yeah.
So, okay. So again, that gives you some ideas on what your sync status is going to look like and what your users or you should expect to see whenever you're trying to sync up a document. One thing that is, as I had stated earlier, and this is one of the reasons why we're probably seeing a bit of an issue here, is that, for example, and we're going to talk about this next week when we get in a chat, Office 365, OneDrive, Chat, all of those, again, since they all work together and they have full integration for collaboration purposes, what will happen is it actually knows what files are out there already, and it's going to ask you, hey, do you want to replace this file? So I could be in the middle of a chat, literally, and go and try to upload a new version of a file, and it will know that I've uploaded that version in the past and say, hey, you sure you want to replace this? Okay, so again, that's where it also gets a little bit slick, is that it does recognize what files you have already uploaded, and it asks you how you want to react or respond to those respective files. So in getting back to me and getting our presentation rolling here again. Okay, so how do we share files? Now this is probably where most users day in and day out are going to spend their time, aside from creation of documents and just saving them on their local desktop or in the OneDrive environment. I typically share files through OneDrive because over the years and over using it, especially as of late, it keeps your email box really clean. It allows you to do all the things you've been doing with attachments and otherwise, but it's all working out of the same environment. So, so now that we've covered how to access those files online as well as offline, again, let's review how we go about sharing them. So the first thing, as you guys could tell here, is you can either go to the OneDrive website and sign in there. We're going to go through that process here at some point in our discussion today. You'll then pick the file or folder you want to share by selecting the circle in the upper right-hand corner of the item, and you can pick multiple items to share together. So I know that folks, when they go to copy paste and do some other things, you get the little check boxes next to each file. As you checkbox each one of those, that then means that's your multiple items that you can share at one time. Then from there, you're going to select share at the top of the page, and then you're going to select anyone with the link can edit or customize. We're going to talk in more detail about this. You don't have to do that every time, but that is one way that you can go about this. As we continue, once you've selected the recipient, you can then go in and set permissions on who can edit those files. So again, it's not just default to allowing everybody to edit. You can pick and choose who can edit it by specific people, groups, or how they've had access in the past. In addition to that, you can set expiration dates so that if you do send a link or you do send it, that it's going to expire within a certain amount of time. And in addition to that, you can make them password protected, again, for compliance purposes and otherwise, to ensure that data is secure as it's traversing the internet, more specifically, avoiding the potential for any man-in-the-middle attacks. And then finally, as we get into more of the additional options, as I'd stated earlier, You can set it up so that anyone gets access to anyone who receives the link can access it and forward it and potentially make changes depending on if you set it up to be editable or not. An alternative would be people just within your organization. So again, those individuals that are within the company are listed currently within the organization as part of your Office 365 account. People that have existing access to the file, or you can designate specific people that actually can do anything with this, view it, and make any changes, again, to the file itself. And then finally, if you want to share a file via email, all you have to do, and Chris is going to review this here momentarily, is when you go to create that share, it's going to have a little button down there. It's going to ask you if you want to basically do the copy link. When you copy the link, then at that point, you just drop it directly in an email, and that's going to give people access to that file within OneDrive. The beauty of this, quite honestly, is it eliminates the need for these large file attachments. So if you've got some limitations with the solutions that you're using or otherwise, although you shouldn't under this solution, but some have had in the past, this is one way to keep your email box clean, limit those number of attachments, because now you're just dropping in a link that's going to access that document online or otherwise. So Chris, again, I'm going to hand it off to you for a few minutes here to walk through how to share a document out.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so before we start on the options within the share, I just want to show you the 2 quick ways of actually getting that prompt, and they're the exact same prompt. If you are in File Explorer, the one on the left, you would just right click on it, blue cloud icon for OneDrive, and you would click Share. On the web access, should you be accessing this via a browser and you're wanting to share, the same dialog box can be popped with this little button right here,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll get the same box. Now that we know how to get the box, let's look at a few things that box will let us do. So I right click, I hit share, and right here we can send it as a link. Anyone with a link can view, and we can actually copy the link. Generates the link copied to my clipboard. I can then share it out via email, or if I'm in a Teams, I can send the link via Teams. We can get that link out there. That's one of the options to do, and that's a very easy option to do. The next thing I can do is actually click on the option as far as who is getting access to the file I'm sharing. And as you can see here, it will narrow down exactly how you want to share it, who you want to share it with, what editing they'll actually get, and whether or not that expires. So should there be something very confidential, you'll want to put a password on it. A lot of options, and like I'm going to go back to what I originally said, the best part is it's all very easy. The back end is pretty complex, what they have to figure out, but as far as being able to access the files, being able to share the files, it's very easy to do.
And Chris, if you wouldn't mind, and I know I'm throwing you for a bit of a curveball here, but can you just open up a Word doc also and just show how you can share right to OneDrive directly out of a Word doc for the
Oh,
Microsoft?
absolutely. So I had one open right here.
Oh, great.
So like he said before, full integration, you can actually choose the default OneDrive locations to where you're putting each document as you go in. You can also, and I did that a little bit quick, there's actually a share option here. It's part of that Office integration. That share will tell me how I'm sharing it. So I'm sharing it through my private OneDrive or the team site OneDrive. You can also attach it to a Word document, PDF, do all those things. But with that full integration of OneDrive into your Microsoft products, it makes it very easy to get this shared out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you so much, Chris.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to steal the screen back from you. Give me a second here, guys. All right. Okay. So moving ahead, how do you access OneDrive for Business via your browser? So again, this is pretty straightforward. Chris has already done it. You can actually see it on a screen there, but we're actually going to go in and show you how to log into it and how easy it is. But as you can see here on screen, you're just simply going to go to login.microsoftonline.com, enter in your username and password, select shared libraries, and select the applicable file and folder. So pretty straightforward. I apologize. It looks like when I hit my screen share, it didn't share. So now we're sharing. Okay. So Again, login.microsoftonline.com, enter username and password, select shared libraries, and select the applicable file or folder. So Chris, again, if you want to grab the screen and show how easy it is to get on just through the browser itself. And while Chris is doing that, if I may, keep in mind, I mean, if you're on any device, whether you have the app installed or not, but if you happen to be on your tablet at home, on your iPad, you can just go to it directly through your Safari browser. So you can access it in that way as well and still create documents within that environment, share documents, as well as view documents and do anything that you need to do or would normally do within the OneDrive environment on your local desktop. So Chris, if you would, go ahead and get started.
Absolutely. So like he said, we can go to login.microsoftonline.com. You can do this from any computer or device. And normally, once you go to this website, it's going to prompt you for your credentials. Obviously, I've been signed in, so it didn't do that for me. The other option to access online is what I showed before, which is right-clicking on this cloud and clicking View Online.
Mm-hmm.
Doing both of those will get you to the main landing page for Office 365. This is where you can access any of your apps really, but specifically for this one, all you do is click on OneDrive and it's going to pull up the private OneDrive. You can
Mm-hmm.
use this same thing though if you have team sites to navigate through any of the team sites you might have. So by default, pulls up your private OneDrive, but it's very easy to go in here and click on any of your team sites and access it that way.
Mm-hmm. And Chris, if you wouldn't mind going back to that landing page again, just briefly. And actually, heck, you can see it all right there, but yep. The reason I asked Chris to go back is just because this illustrates, though, all of the different, everything that you guys would have access to on your local desktop. As you can see here, it is in Office 365 online. So your entire Office suite of products, your OneDrive, your Outlook, Teams, everything is here. So no matter if you're on your browser and accessing it in that way, or if you happen to do it from your File Explorer or local desktop, again, they're going to integrate with one another. They're going to have the same information depending on how you sync everything up. So Chris, I appreciate that. This time we'll see if I can have a little more success in grabbing my screen back from me because last time was clearly an epic failure. All right, moving on to the next slide. So we've talked about this already, guys. I'm not going to belabor the point, but there is an app for that. Whether it's a Windows phone, which heaven knows, I would hope they would have an app for their own solution. An Android or iOS device, there are apps for it. There are apps for most of the components of Office 365. So for example, I have Teams on my phone. I have Teams on my iPad. I have an Android phone, obviously an iPad as an Apple device, and of course I have on my Surface tablet here. So I'm really running across 3 different platforms. And whenever somebody tries to contact me, either via chat or the voice over IP feature, again, some of the things we'll talk about during our webinar next week, every device in my house is ringing. So again, that's the beauty of this solution, is that it is device agnostic and it allows you to work either in the browser environment or it allows you to work specifically through the app, whatever your preference happens to be. And a lot of questions that we get is it backed up? So this is kind of a catch-22, okay? It is a hosted environment. It is Microsoft, all right? It does have significant uptime. However, Microsoft is not liable for your data, okay? So if for some reason they were to lose something, if a file or a folder were to be corrupted, no offense to anybody on the line today, but Microsoft isn't going to drop everything to go back and try and retrieve a file that may have been lost along the way. That's where this solution comes into play. For most of the organizations that we partner with, or a large number of them, we would encourage you guys to look at the Datto Office 365 backup. It is a very cost-effective way to get all of that information. It backs up everything. It's not just specific to OneDrive. It's going to back up a lot of different information specific to Office 365 as an environment. And it's going to do that 3 times daily. And it's going to push that over into the Datto hosting environment for safe and secure storage there. Again, so the idea behind this, of course, is that it ensures that if your files or folders were corrupted for some reason, or if there were an issue, you do have a secondary method that you can retrieve that data from in a very quick and easy manner. So again, just for what it's worth, if it's something you guys are not familiar with that are on the call today and you'd like more information, I would encourage you, if you're one of our managed services clients, to reach out to your VCIO. However, if you are not, feel free to contact me directly, and I can give you some insight on what a solution like that would look like for your business. Another question, of course, that comes up pretty regularly is how much OneDrive storage do I have exactly? Um, if anybody knows anything about Office 365 and has ever done any research or due diligence around it, they tend to tag them with these E1, E3, E5 variations. What that largely means is the level of compliance and the type of Office 365 solution and what's included with it. So for example, an E1 solution may only be a mailbox plus OneDrive plus Teams, let's say. Whereas an E3 is the full Office suite of products, and an E5 or something might be the same, but a much more compliant variation of the E3 for those that are in SEC or have SEC compliance or HIPAA compliance that need to be concerned with. But back to the storage aspect of things, 1 terabyte per user. Okay, so again, when you spread this across an entire organization of say 20 to 30 employees, you could have 20 or 30 terabytes of data. Each user is going to get up to 1 terabyte of data. And in my experience, based on the type of documents I tend to create, I could probably go back for the last decade and still not even come close to filling up a 1 terabyte OneDrive storage account. So again, 1 terabyte is what you're typically going to see coming with that. So that really concludes, if you will, the main component of our webinar today. So, what have we covered today? We've covered online access, offline access, sharing files and folders, how to share within a Word document, how to set up permissions within those documents to prevent somebody from making changes or downloading it or making sure that it expires at a certain date. So again, we've covered a lot of ground today. And as I said at the offset of the webinar, because of that, I would encourage you to revisit the webinar at throttlenet.com/webinars if you have any questions on what we've covered today. So how we help though with this solution is that we are, of course, an Office 365 reseller. We're a Microsoft partner. We've been a Microsoft partner since pretty much our inception. So we can help organizations with setting up and configuring their OneDrive team sites. For example, we showed at the offset of our demonstration today with our company site and then all of our respective company files and folders beneath that. So we can assist in setting up that environment for you guys so that you can start designating different team or departments and giving policies, permissions to those respective individuals. And then, of course, we provide ongoing support and troubleshooting for any issues that may come up with OneDrive and Office 365 as a whole. Okay. In addition to that, other ways that we help organizations, I know that we have a number of our clients on the line today. For those that are not aware, we are a managed services provider. Our primary solution is managed network. This solution really is where we provide a full-time IT department, including monitoring, maintenance, and management of your network infrastructure, as well as a team of dedicated professionals, consultant, and a fully staffed help desk that's available to you. So again, that is one of our major services. And then we always accompany that, or I should say the other way around, we also offer hosting solutions. Again, being a Microsoft partner, we do support the Azure Hosting environment. We typically bundle that with our managed network or managed services plans, because even in a hosting environment, you still have to have an organization that's pushing updates, patches, maintenance, management, and otherwise, because even though it's hosted with Microsoft, they're still asking that a local provider go in and make sure that these things are done on a regular basis to ensure that everything is current and providing the highest level of security possible. So, and then finally, how we can help. And if you want to speak to one of us, you're more than welcome to check us out at ThrottleNet.com, of course, or you can give us a call at 866-829-5557. So we are officially finished, if you will, with our main portion of our webinar today. However, we do have some questions pending out here, so we're going to see if we can't grab a few of those real quick. Give me just a second, and Chris, please stay on the line because these may be directed at you. So let's see here. So one question I have is, if you share through OneDrive, can the recipient see the document if they don't have OneDrive?
I believe the answer to that is yes, as I just sent something to my personal account and was able to open it on my phone without having anything tied to ThrottleNet on my personal phone. So if you saw me looking down, that's what I was doing. Just I'd like to verify before I tell people things. So I do believe the answer to that one is yes, as I have just did it with my phone here.
And speaking from experience, guys, I can confidently say, yes, it does allow you to do that. I mean, that's one of the benefits of this is, let's say you had a rather large file size, like I mentioned earlier, say a big video file or something. You can send somebody outside of the organization the link to that, and they can view that file. That's one way, again, to cut down on trying to send a large file via email. So yes, they would have access to that. Absolutely, absolutely.
And for security purposes, it does prompt you if you are sending something outside the organization. It will tell you, hey, are you sure you want to send this outside the organization? So it knows it's smart enough to pick that up.
Yeah. Next question we have was, can OneDrive for Business replace service like Dropbox and ShareFile? Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if you're working in the Microsoft environment, i.e. the Office suite of products on a day in, day out basis, and as I'd stated at the offset, that is one of the beauties of this solution is it does fully integrate. So you don't have to switch back and forth and, oh, I need to sync this up with Dropbox, so I got to go into Dropbox now and make sure it does a file sync and so on and so forth. And then a lot of times I've talked to organizations, when you talk in terms of Dropbox, where if they didn't set it up right, all of a sudden they wake up one day and they go, why is my C drive completely full? And you find out that the entire Dropbox account with all your pictures and audio files and everything else have been syncing up and really creating a major issue as far as your storage is concerned. So again, OneDrive is, for lack of a better way to put it, a direct competitor. But in the same vein, I mean, it's kind of heads and tails above the rest, especially if you are a daily user of all the other Microsoft Office products and solutions. Next question we had was, can an administrator share a OneDrive file on a user's account if the user forgets or fails to share a file? I'm not exactly sure how to answer that. I guess that what's being asked there, if they want to maybe rephrase it in the question, and I might come back to it, but can an administrator share a OneDrive file on a user's account? I assume that the question is, if the user thinks they sent something, forgot to send it, and they call somebody in the office and they say, hey, look, can you send this file for me? I forgot to send it. If that's what we're really asking here, I would assume, but Chris, do you know by chance if an administrator can go into an individual's OneDrive account and share files and folders out?
I would assume the administrator maintains that, but I would have to check with the cloud specialist for sure.
Okay, understood,
Yep.
understood. So we'll have to circle back on that one.
Yep, that's no problem.
And then let me check our chat board and see what we've got going on here. Can OneDrive reside on the desktop? Okay, so can you pull OneDrive, Chris, out of the File Explorer just so it sits directly on the desktop and
Are
is
you talking
available?
about just an icon?
Just an icon, yeah.
Yeah, you could definitely put that on the desktop.
Okay, okay,
Yep.
yeah. So hopefully that answers your question, Don. Absolutely, I know why you're asking. I know why you're asking. So let's see here. We have one other question coming in here. Does the 1 terabyte per user, is it partitioned off so each user only has 1 terabyte of space available, or is a pooled storage? Now, if I recall correctly, this is kind of Chris, I'll defer to you first on that. Do you happen to know? But it's a bit of a convoluted answer from the discussions that I've had with our cloud specialist.
It is a bit of a convoluted answer. If it's much like the Outlook mail storage, it is individually based.
Yes. Yeah.
But there's some convoluted stuff on the back end. I remember him discussing that gets a little
Yeah.
wonky.
So without getting too confusing on it, just always look at it as 1 terabyte per user. That's how we'd really encourage you guys to view it. However, on the back end, depending on how it's structured, it could be a pooled storage. So yes, that could be the case. But again, the way that we always want folks to understand it and use it is just to really segment it by user as opposed to as a pooled resource. So again, that's something I want to check with him. But in my discussions in the past, because this has been a question that I've been asked in the past, that is the answer that I've received, is essentially view it always per user, but understand that on the back end, when you're talking an entire organization, it could be viewed as, in the example given here, 20 1 terabyte accounts is a total pool of roughly 20 terabytes total. So again, a bit of a convoluted answer. I wish I had some more clear and definitive on it. And that's why I would always defer to just viewing it on an individual basis itself. So hopefully that gives you some insight there, and we'll get some answers keyed in on some of these for people to review later on. So that appears to be, I'm going to check and see if we have anything else here. Okay, I do not see where I have any additional questions at this point. Looks like some have been answered along the way. So I think we're in pretty good shape. So at any rate, folks, we are finished for today. I do appreciate everybody joining us. It's been fantastic. I will say this has been our largest webinar to date, and we really appreciate you guys. We appreciate you being clients of ours. We appreciate anybody who's not checking us out. And again, we are going to be hosting these webinars going forward for the next few weeks, outlining all the different aspects, benefits, and how to use Office 365 and all the components within. As I part ways with you, again, I thank you for your time today and invite you to check us out at ThrottleNet.com, ThrottleNet.com/webinars, and don't forget to wash your hands. So I appreciate everybody's time, and I look forward to speaking with everybody in the near future. Thank you so much.